Yeah, so the topic today is yellow radio troubleshooting. Margaret and I were kind of going through some of the older stuff, and we did back in couple of years, almost 2 years ago.
2021. I think it was like September of 21 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, we did a the first troubleshooting session, and I realized when I was kind of looking it over, that it was really more focused on base station types of troubleshooting. So I thought, well, rather than kind of rehash that, which might be beneficial, I thought I'd just kind of take a yellow radio troubleshooting focus and see what that see if that's helpful at all, because I get quite a few questions almost every week about, this didn't work, that didn't work, and I need to improve my signal and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, might be good to go over this. So that's kind of the motivation.
Yeah. Well, and also because I'm pushing for, we still want to do the certification that we've been talking about. And one of the things on the certification for amateur radio operator or Oxcom or whatever it turns out to be is knowing how to troubleshoot out in the field. And because, when we're called to go work someplace, we need to know how to troubleshoot our own stuff. So, and I felt like I needed to hear it at least one more time. Okay. So thank you so much, John, for doing this.
Okay. So this focuses on the yellow radio, but there's some backup material I've got for the base station stuff too, if we want to go and explore that. So I thought we'd go over some common yellow radio scenarios, problems, and then do a little bit of primarily like what's in my yellow radio troubleshooting toolbox. And then I'd actually try a little SWR demo here, just to show you what I do to start things with. So I really like these kind of scenario things where you kind of pose a scenario and then talk about what the issue might be. So the obvious first one is you turn on your yellow radio and you don't hear anybody. So this is audience participation. So if you can think, okay, well, what's the issue here?
Don't have it turned up high enough.
Yeah, your volume isn't high enough.
Volume's not high enough. How many people have done that?
Battery's dead.
Battery's dead, not charged up.
There's nobody out there to hear.
There's nobody there. Is it really Thursday?
The radio should be telling you something when you first turn it on.
Yeah. One of the things I thought of was, is it Thursday evening?
Yeah.
Oh, are you saying that the radio doesn't say anything?
No, it's just that you don't hear anybody. So you.
Oh, okay.
All right. Are you on the right channel?
Yeah. Are you on the right channel?
You might not be in good range either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you couldn't. They could be there, but you just don't hear them. They could be, yeah.
If you're in your car,
first you might be on 005 instead of 114. I mean 0. I've done that.
I know somebody that's done that too.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so being on the right channel. I thought of one that was, did you account for daylight savings time?
Yeah.
All right, so completely not radio based at all, but okay. Well, this one. So here was the list that I came up with. did the radio turn on? So if it didn't, if you don't see anything on the display, you turned it on, chances are pretty good the battery is dead. So try another battery. Or you could actually put it on, if you don't have an extra battery, you could put it on the charger and turn it on, and that may give it enough juice to see things, see if it's working. Don't transmit when it's on the charger. The charger isn't set up to power the radio when it's kind of a trickle charger, so it doesn't have a lot of amperage. So you don't want to transmit on the charger.
So you can receive on the charger
Yeah,
sometimes.
You can receive on the charger.
Okay,
You can monitor
you.
on with the
Good
charger.
to know.
So is the volume high enough? That's what Steve was saying. Does it do its can you hear it say channel mode? The other thing to do that a lot of people don't know is that there's a little button on the
Radio.
on the bottom little button on the thing there, little black one, is called monitor. And if you hold that in, it opens the squelch for a little bit, and it turns on the red or the green LED, and that way you can adjust the volume to up and down to your comfortable level. You could also turn on the KQMI, and you can also turn on the weather. Those are stations that are always on. Let's see, we mentioned the right channel. Whether the little arrow is on what the channel that you want, the A or B side. And I don't know how many times I've put in the right channel number, but I didn't have the AB in the right spot. Especially when you're switching from your zone channel to your ham channel on Thursdays. Making sure your antenna's on tight. I've run into, there's some antennas that will work themselves a little loose, and if you tighten them down, that'll help. Let's see, don't hear one. I check with another radio if you've got it. A lot of people have multiple radios, which is super handy for a whole host of reasons, but you can also just check whether there's anybody there on the other radio, and then if it's Thursday evening. So anybody else come up with anything as we're going through that? Good. These radios
For chunking, one sec.
Oh,
For chunking the repeater is technically taboo, but it does help you know whether your radio is working.
What's meant by that?
So kerchunking means just transmitting, and
Without
then,
identifying yourself.
yeah, technically a kerchunk means you haven't identified. The appropriate way to kerchunk is to say, to give your call. So if I was, so right now I'm on the Manzanita repeater, and if I wanted to check whether things were working, I could just hit the mic, and you hear the little, that's called a squelch tail when you do that. I don't know if you can hear it. K7 Tango Yankee testing. So that little thing at the end from when I let up is called a squelch tail. And so if you hear a squelch tail, then you know it's working. So that's what kerchunking is. You're not supposed to do it, but I mean, since you're not supposed to, you should do an ID. But a lot of times if I'm like in a new area, like I took my radio to Hawaii when we were on vacation, and I had pre-programmed it with all of the different repeaters on the island we were on, and I left it. You're never sure whether you can hit those repeaters, and so I chunked through all the different repeaters to see which ones came back with a squelch tail. And so those were the ones that I knew. I was like, oh, okay, those are the ones I should listen to, stuff. So that's where chunking is valuable. Usually if its squelch tail came back, I would respond with my call sign to say just K7TY testing. So that's the chunking. By the way, that was an interesting exercise. There's the repeater book I think we've talked about. It's the online thing, repeaterbook.com. It's a database of all the repeaters all over the country. And you can actually download a list of all the repeaters and put it into the programming software and just program up the radio. And you've got all the repeaters for a particular area loaded in there. So it proved to be very handy for programming things. Okay, so the corresponding thing to not hearing anybody is you turn on your yellow radio and to the Thursday net, and when you try to check in, net control doesn't respond. And you try again, and again, no response. So what could be the problem?
Maybe net control isn't on.
Nobody
Well-
signed up.
Nobody signed up. Yes. No, you've heard net control. Let's say that you've heard net control.
Your battery could be dead.
Well,
Yeah,
no, but
after you heard net control.
Oh, okay.
So the radio's basically working.
You may not be in the right space to hear, for them to respond.
Mhm.
You may
You're
have
not
to
on the right
position.
channel. You think you're on the right channel, and well, no. If you hear them, then you're on the right channel.
Mhm.
maybe you're holding your radio horizontally and the antenna is radiating not anywhere near to where the repeater is.
Okay.
Well, you wouldn't be hearing them then.
And that's true.
Yeah. So
It could be you just don't have the volume turned up.
Then you wouldn't hear
Mhm.
them.
could
I don't
could
think, is that true? I thought that the volume only controlled what you're receiving.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so-
maybe you're not talking at the right angle to the microphone, or not, maybe you're holding your radio arm length away or something. I
Mhm.
don't know why you do that, but
well, see if the net control doesn't respond at all. So for instance, if there was something the matter with your microphone, but you were still transmitting,
Mhm.
the net control would hear that there's somebody transmitting, but that there's no audio.
Right.
So typically you should, as a net control, say, okay, I somebody's in there, but I don't have any audio. And then that would give you a clue to help troubleshooting.
mhm.
Sometimes it's just out here, it's topographical.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah.
But so because the repeater is high, you could hear them, but they can't necessarily hear you. I don't really quite understand that. I mean, if you can hear them, obviously there's a straight line connection between you and the repeater. So why wouldn't they be able to hear you?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, although it happens all the time.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
it could also be a double.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, it could be that it was so much a double that the net control only heard the other person. It didn't even sound like a double to them.
Yeah, because
Right.
they could have had a stronger signal or a more powerful signal than your signal, and it just totally buried your signal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Usually, when FM, which is what all the yellow radios are, they have this capture where the strongest signal wins. And most of the time you can kind of tell if there's another person in there. You've all heard that kind of squealing in the back and stuff. You can usually tell, but if somebody's really louder than somebody else, then you can't even tell the other guy's in there. It's a weaker station.
But you would know, because since you can hear them, you would know that somebody else had called in exactly when you did. So you would know to try again.
Maybe sometimes you don't know. Oh,
Well,
I mean,
what we
the-
tell people is if you aren't acknowledged, try again.
yes. But here you tried again and you didn't get any response
Right.
again that time.
Well, I have this radio that the PPT doesn't work on, so I have to use the earplugs in and do it if I want to use it. And this one was the one I just brought back to make sure the battery's good. I leave this one in our emergency trailer, so there's at least a radio there.
Mhm.
So the switch does go bad on some of those, and it can be a problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But that's not something you're going to be able to fix. That's if you're out in the field and your PTT button doesn't work, you better have another radio with you.
Or plug in your earphones, because it's got a button on it it'll transmit. It just
Okay.
yeah,
I
it'll
got it.
transmit, but just won't with that button.
Yeah. So what I came up with was that like Paul said, the battery might be low. That if there's a spot where it's not, the battery isn't dead, it's got some voltage, but it's low enough that when you try to transmit, it's not enough voltage to transmit.
Mhm.
And so the radio just won't transmit, but then it'll receive, but it just won't transmit. And so the way you can tell if that's happening, you can the LED, which would normally be red when you're transmitting, it's not there. And sometimes you'll see the display blank out where it's not enough to even drive the display. So the radio just kind of goes comatose while you're transmitting, but then it's okay when you release the button.
Okay.
So another thing is the antenna tight? And then this is another one to try another radio, because of all the things that fail on these yellow radios, there's two things that if you talk to Bruce about the ones that people have kind of turned in, and it's that darn connector, the headphone connector, goes bad. So that's always a problem. And then the transmitter, the transistors inside here that drive the transmitter go bad, probably from overheating or something like that. And so
Or dropping it too many times.
sure, dropping it. Yeah, that never
Badly.
helps.
They don't like that.
And so the transmitters are much more prone to failure, and that why having a different radio is always a good idea to
So,
try.
John, I've heard in the various discussions that you don't want to talk too long on a yellow radio before you drop the key and then you finish up your next line of your conversation because they tend to overheat. What is the symptom of an overheated radio?
That's good. That's a good question. So there's two reasons why you don't want to transmit for very long. And the first one is what you're just saying, is you don't want to overheat the transistors. Usually on some radios you can actually feel that they get hot. Some of the I haven't experienced that with yellow radios, but some of the ham radios that Yaesus or ICOMs and stuff, where they're like running 8 watts or 10 watts. They get very warm when you transmit for very long. And usually what they'll do, yellow radios don't have this though. Yellow radios will just burn up the transmitter. The more expensive radios have thermal limiters on them, so when they get hot, they'll just stop the transmitter, and so they protect themselves, basically. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later. But the other thing, that if you have a high SWR, a standing wave ratio, that will also cause the transmitter to heat up, and so you might not even. It might not be something that you're talking too long. It might be something that just causes the transmitter to not work. The other reason that people tell you to let up and don't talk too long is that many repeaters have what they call a timeout to protect them. So the repeater will limit you to only 30 seconds or a minute or something like that, 3 minutes transmit time. So and that's up to the repeater operator to set that. And I can't remember what Bruce sets the timer at on our repeaters, but it seemed like it was a pretty long period. It was like 3 minutes or something like that. So it was a pretty long time. Okay, so no one can hear me. So that's kind of like the transmitter's not transmitting, and you have to figure out what that is. Now, the other case that we kind of talked about a little bit there was you turn the yellow radio on, and when you check in, the net control says your signal's weak and scratchy. So now what do you do?
Change positions.
Now what is the issue? Yeah, so we tell everybody change positions.
Put your antenna straight up, or at the direction of whatever you're talking to. That's another thing.
Yeah, so antenna orientation.
And try not to have electronic things between you and where you're transmitting. So if you're inside, you want to make sure you're away from the TV, away from metal, not in the bathroom, anywhere that you have a window is always better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Down that same path, this 3D printer, when I first got it, it was sitting in my den, and I have a nesting system in the house for wireless Wi-Fi, and that system got worked very poorly. Suddenly, I couldn't reach places I used to, and it turned out to be just because the metal chassis in the bottom of the 3D printer was next to the router.
Oh,
And I physically moved it in here, and my problems have gone away. But it was just that metal proximity. So your point about metal plates or metal devices certainly does have some interesting implications.
Yeah. I've noticed that there's been places where metal ducting in the walls, like you might not know where those are. And if you're up close to near one of those, they can really impact where your handheld performance is. Very unexplained ways, especially like our upstairs has ducts. The ducts are in the ceiling, not on the floor. So that means the metal ducting goes up the walls up there. And so it's where you think second floor, I should be fine no matter where I am coverage wise. No, it's actually sometimes better down here on the first floor than there. Okay, so let's see what I said here. Yeah, change locations. The higher, the better. Most of the time, fewer obstacles. Change antenna orientations. Now, so we tell everybody hold it vertical because that's the best thing. But I know that upstairs in our dining room, especially for when Val and Bernard are zone net controls, I know that if I lay my antenna, I lay the radio down on the dining room table, that's the best reception.
Wow.
You know, so if you're having trouble, start with it vertical, but feel free to wave it around a little bit, and hopefully where the signal is strongest for receiving, it's also strongest for transmitting. Not totally true, but that's often the case. So, start with it vertical, but don't hesitate moving it around and trying at different orientations, because these signals if you were out in the open, vertical would be best almost all the time. But if you're in a house with metal and all that stuff all around, there's signals bouncing all over, and that's going to change things. If you have an outside antenna, of course, you don't have to. Of course, that's hard. It's hard to swing that around, but vertical is good for that. Try a different radio. It's you notice a common theme there. Having a different radio is a good idea. Try a different antenna. We've got these long guys, the long ones. We've got the shorter ones, and the wives' tale is that the longer ones are always better, but I've run experiments with the guys, some of the people over in Zone 1, and where we've tried, there are 3 different lengths of antennas you can easily buy for these things. And so I've gotten all those 3 and gave it to them and say, okay, which one's works better? And it's like the middle-sized one they liked. So I said, okay, use the middle one. And you just have to do that. The other thing is there are now different antennas for GMRS and ham. So when we first started doing yellow radio stuff, there was only one kind, and it was just the dual band ham version. And so they kind of worked on GMRS. The frequencies are kind of close, but the difference in frequency can be enough to mess up things. So you can now buy GMRS and ham versions of the same antenna. So I got those because I was curious to see if they would perform any different, and they do.
Oh.
So that's something to try, to just, okay, well, if you have the other version, give it a try.
So the ones that we have now are ham antennas. So if we've had our yellow radios for a while, they're ham antennas.
Yeah. So if you look on the bottom, if you look on there's a label on there.
Huh?
Most of them have labels, and if it says if it ends with a G on the number, then it's a GMRS antenna.
Okay.
And if it doesn't have a letter afterwards, so it's just the number, then that's probably the ham version.
And but it seems like if we're talking specifically about ham stuff, the time that you would need to get a GMRS antenna would be if you're having trouble being heard on 119.
Yeah. Or in your zone channel. would
Or
be,
use
I
it on
mean,
channel.
John, on
Yep.
those old ones that we had, the original ones, they have they're NA-77 or 771s, and they actually have the frequency that it covers. It's 144 to slash 430 megahertz. So they don't have, that's a
Yep, that's a
delineation
ham
that's
one.
on those. That's the old ones, yeah.
yeah. And so for instance, my ham one, it just has the NA771 UHF VHF. It doesn't have the frequency range.
Mm,
But the GMRS one says NA771G 462 megahertz.
Oh,
Right. So that's the difference. You know, the ham one is 440 megahertz roughly, and the GMRS is 462 roughly. So, you know, that's pretty close, but it's enough to screw things up somewhat.
So John, if you're using your yellow radio, both for the ham check-in and for the GMRS stuff, do you swap antennas or do you just play it by ear?
Well, I tend to leave the GMRS antenna on
oh,
because your zone channel is simplex. And so you want every benefit you can get for a simplex connection. Whereas the repeaters, you know, they're up high. They don't, it doesn't matter. It's not a big difference there. But if I'm going to do, an exclusively ham event, then I'll put the ham antenna on.
Okay.
But I generally don't sweat it much. Let's see. Is the antenna tight? Always check that. I had the antenna fall off on me once when I went to talk. And so I'm sensitive to the tighten the antenna all the time. So the other thing that is speaking into the microphone from about 4 inches away, you know, the microphone is right above the AB, right? That little tiny dot is that's where the microphone is. And on most of the radios, I've got another Baofeng where it's up on the, up in a different spot. So figure out where your microphone hole is, and you want to talk about 4 inches away. I think some of the yellow radio classes, they get people a little too far away. And so their people are weak. So their audio is weak anyhow.
John, we used to teach, and Karen, I don't know if that's still what you are teaching, to talk not right into it, but like across it.
Cross
That's
section.
right.
Is that still?
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I don't have it way out here. I don't have it right here. I asked them to put it right here right by their face, and just talk this way with the antenna straight up.
Yeah, you don't want to like talk right into it because you don't want to slobber into the mic hole there, but you know, just a little bit of an angle is fine to talk through it.
That way it runs down.
The other condition is this is UHF VHF. It's actually atmospheric conditions can play a pretty big part in propagation. There's I don't notice it too much right around here because I'm pretty close to the repeater, but when we check in on EBO, on Mount EBO on the EBO 22 net on Thursday at 7, there's some times when it's raining and stuff like that, it just has a problem. So
It's the same way with timber when I call in on to timber on Thursdays. If it's really raining hard or it's a really bad day, it'll be the same thing. You get a lot of scratchy, it'll be hard to hear. I'm usually able to get a signal out, but it's pretty amazing, but it can be hard to hear. Yeah,
it's kind of surprising when you sometimes like EBO, most of the time from here with my outside antenna, it's fine. but there was a long period there where I just could not connect. Of course, they were having some trouble too.
Yes, they were.
Yes.
But,
So, John, is it true that UHF is more susceptible to atmospheric conditions than VHF is?
I actually think it's VHF has a harder time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just from my experience, UHF is supposed to have actually better coverage, like in buildings and stuff, which has always surprised me. But that's what I don't have much experience with trying to talk within a building, but it seems like VHF, like EBO, is VHF. All of our repeaters here are UHF. So they're going to be impacted, but I think people like Karen and stuff would notice, and people in the Halem might have a harder time getting in there sometimes. Anyhow, it's the question is, is everybody the same? If everybody out of into the repeater is scratchy, then you can tell, that's probably, it could be atmospheric.
Or a repeater issue?
Yeah,
Mhm.
or a repeater issue.
And actually the one in Hebo is just, they've had some real issues and also with their squelch. So.
Yeah. Okay. So the kind of general philosophy for the troubleshooting is to eliminate known problem components, and that kind of have an idea of what components cause particular problems. Like, what are the antennas? What's a typical thing when an antenna goes bad? And if you can remove an unnecessary component, we don't have too many of those on handhelds, but you could get rid of that stuff. So like if I've got my WinLink set up here and I'm having trouble, I just disconnect everything and make sure that the WinLink stuff isn't bothering things. Test with known good replacements. And test with known working hardware. Have a separate radio. And don't assume anything is good. Especially with wires and connectors and things like that. And then use test gear to measure things. So what is in my yellow radio toolbox for when I test this? And this applies to ham and GMRS, but I have my spare radio, and then I have a spare battery. I always want to have one of those so you can check the battery component. And then I have a SWR meter. So it's just a little tiny thing. Let me turn off my background thing. So you can see this stuff. So this is my little SWR meter. I'll show you how it works here in a little bit.
What kind is it and how much was it?
Well, if you, this little kit of things right here. So it has an SWR meter. It has a dummy load. So the dummy load is the perfect antenna, right? I mean, it doesn't radiate anything, but the transmitter thinks it's talking to a perfect antenna with the dummy load. So that's in it. And then there's a bunch of little adapters, little adapter dealies that you need to hook all these things together. So this whole thing was $44, I think, on Amazon.
Will you send, is that
It's-
on the thing that's on the public website? Is that
I can't remember if this is on it or not, but this presentation has the link.
okay?
In each one of these things, it has a link for. So
Thank you.
Great.
and then
Is
I've
that-
got,
And this is all VHF, UHF specific.
yes, this is all,
Yeah.
this doesn't work for it. This stuff doesn't work for HF at all.
when I've looked online, which I just did yesterday, about SWR meters, like for, especially for HF, but even for VHF, UHF, man, you can get up into the hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's some crazy ones. This one works just fine for UHF, VHF stuff. And then I've got the two antennas to swap, and then I've got a multimeter. And the multimeter, that's just a generic one from Amazon. This is my trusty Harbor Freight.
Right.
That's what we have. I think it was free.
Yeah, you could you if you get the coupon, you can get them for free. So or I think I actually I had one break, and so I had to pay one. My free one broke, and then I had to buy one, and it was $6 or something like that.
So I know what multimeters do, but where in the troubleshooting, are you going to talk about where in the troubleshooting process you might use a multimeter?
Sure,
with respect to a handheld?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to do first. So if you have just a handheld, there isn't too much you can do, but it's useful for checking your battery. Right? So don't drop your battery. So I pulled the battery out, and it's got little connectors on the back, on the bottom there. And I'm just gonna check the voltage. So I set the multimeter to voltage, and let's see and if I don't short it out, we'll be good. Hang on just a second here. I'm gonna turn that on. And it's showing a battery voltage of 9.2 volts. So
where on the battery, where are you putting the two multimeter leads?
right on those little metal connectors.
Yeah. So one
and
on there's three of them.
Yeah, there's three, and one of them is a plus, and one has little labels on the bottom you can't really see. It's plus and minus.
Okay, so you put them on
you
those
just
two.
put plus and minus on the right ones there, and you go. So this battery is rated at, you look at the label, it says 7.4 volts. But when I measured it, it's 9.2. So that's okay. They can handle that. These Baofangs, if it was over 10 volts, I'd worry. That means that something's really wrong, but they typically charge with a 10 volt charger.
Right.
So that's what I'd use the multimeter for, with the handheld.
Mhm.
So
With
for the using the SWR meter, this is what you do is you got to use these little adapters because it has just a particular, oops. You just take off the antenna, and you just screw in the SWR meter. And then in order to, I'll just use the dummy load. So the first thing you want to do is test it with a dummy load. So what you're going to do, what the SWR meter will let you do, is it measures how much power the transmitter is putting out. So let me turn it on. I don't think you can, it's got a little nice display. I don't know if the thing focuses very well, but it's a nice digital display. And then if I turn on the transmitter, and then I push the talk button, it should change. Can you see that at all?
No.
No.
Just-
Okay.
Not really.
Not
No.
really. So it says that the forward power is 4.7 watts. the reflected power is 0. And
Oh.
the SWR is 1.01. So that's what you want, right? So it's talking to a perfect antenna. So you want all the power, all the forward power going to the antenna and none of it coming back. So the reverse power is, you want that 0. So now let's put on an antenna.
This is so cool.
I'm just gonna, which one I got here? So I got the ham version. Oh, I need the little adapters, one of the little adapters to make the adapter thing. So I screw it all together. So now you can, I've got the radio, the SWR meter, and then I got the antenna. And I'm going to do it on Manzanita just to see. K7 Tango Yankee testing. And luckily the meter holds the value, right? So it stores it, and it says the forward power is 4.1 watts. Notice it's higher, but the reflected power is 1.3 watts. So that means that the SWR is 3.6, which is like, oh, that's not very good, actually. Anytime you're above 3, you're not very well matched. So even though this is a ham antenna, it's not super well matched to that thing. So I'm going to take, and just for grins, I'm going to put the GMRS antenna on it. Let's see what it does. I'm going to use the ham repeaters again. K7TY testing. Now it says forward power 1.6 watts. So quite a bit less. The reverse power is 0.2. So nice and low. And the SWR is 1.9. So it's, yeah, the SWR is good. That's what you want, is under 2 is ideal. But the transmitted power is not great. So that's kind of a function that it's GMRS. So it's not made for that. Now just hang on a second. Let me get my one other antenna. This is my little.
So John,
Yeah.
That display gives you the power, the forward power, the reverse power, and the SWR. Each of those things is displayed. So you don't have to do any math.
You don't have to do any math. You just read the display. So now I've got my short antenna on here. And let's see what it does. K7TY testing. So forward power is 2 watts, 2.0 watts. Reverse power is 0.8. And the VSWR is 4.35. And so this is a ham antenna too. So it's above 4. So
That's bad.
yeah. So we
don't have good antennas.
Well, that's
right?
kind of a function of them being handheld antennas. That there's not a whole lot of great quality control on, and this is a cheapy one. I've got other antennas around that we could play with, but it tells you something about what's going on. But so what you're looking for is you want to have a low VSWR, but you want to have a higher forward power. And the reason why it might be messing up is that these radios have circuitry in there that if they detect high PSWR, they reduce the transmitter power
Oh,
to kind of protect
Gotcha.
themselves. They don't want to burn up, on stuff, so they protect for high PSWR. Now the other, I don't have any slides of it, but I've got another fancier antenna tester is called an antenna analyzer, and I've got one of those, and they actually let you you hook up an antenna, and it does a sweep of frequencies, and it'll show you what the SWR is on the frequencies, and it tells you, oh, well, then and it shows you where the ham bands are, and you can tell where the SWR and stuff is. It's very handy, and that's what I used. I bought a whole bunch of these antennas, and I tried a bunch of them, and I plotted them out on that computer, and there's quite a bit of difference, even though you buy 3 of the same kind, and they all work a little bit differently. It's really strange.
wow.
So
So when they make these, are they just careless, or do they not test them before they sell you them and stuff?
I don't know. These are Nagoya antennas. There's a whole bunch of fake ones out. And if you the fake ones, I had one, I had a fake one, and it was they now, in fact, if you go to the Nagoya website, they tell you how to tell fake from non-fake antennas. It's very subtle difference. And the fake one that I'd gotten, it was like a piece of wood. It wasn't an antenna. It was a piece of wood. It had just awful SWR across all frequencies and stuff. I don't know what was inside of it, but it was not an antenna. So you got to be careful on, especially buying, on Amazon. So when I buy stuff for yellow radios, I go to the Bofang website and pick from there, and you can buy it directly from them, or they give you an affiliate link with Amazon that you can that supposedly is an official, just an alternative source. So I think
So is that SWR meter part of the Bofang website world?
no, that one isn't. That one's just a regular Amazon one, but it's got pretty good reviews, and it's certainly easy to use, and it's got it's nice and small and everything, so it's easy to carry around. So I think I did everything. Yeah. So let me.
Is the name on that SureCom? Is that what it says?
Oh, that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The name is SureCom. Here, I'll put the link in the whoops. In the
I
chat.
have one for my regular antennas, but it's hard to hook up because you actually have to put the regular wires on both sides, and it reads out. Has a battery in it. You have to keep it charged.
Yeah, here I'll
with
put
a USB, but that one's nice and convenient for.
Yeah, so I put
to
the Amazon link for the SWR stuff there on the chat if you want to grab that off the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And when I publish this up on this presentation up on the website, it'll the PDF has got the links on them.
It's great. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So let's see. I just wanted two quick things. not related to this topic, but just reminding everybody about the Food Can Tsunami 2 coming up on the 29th. I think a lot of you guys are already volunteered. We can use some more hams though, particularly in Zone 4 and Zone 4, and for mobile ham, we can use one more mobile ham if you're interested. Then there's a potential, you remember Able Readiness 2 last year, the big thing at Underhill Plaza with the Oregon Department of Human Services. They're doing an AR3, at least they're doing an HF voice and WinLink exercise, and we've been invited to participate in that. We might be doing that with conjunction with Tillamook County. That's on May 11th at 1 o'clock. And we'll send out information as we get more about that. But that it's supposed to be a quick drill. Field Day is coming up, ARRL Field Day, June 24th and 25th. And we might have a station set up. We're still noodling on that. And that's it. Do you have anything, Margaret?
Don't. But I do have one thing, and I want to say thank you. I mean, the way that you made this more specific to the handhelds, it was just perfect for me. I mean, I understand some of the stuff way better than I did before 4 o'clock today. So thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you talk about a second radio and somebody's going to buy something as a backup, do you recommend something a little bit better? I had issues with my yellow radio, and I bought a slightly better one, BF8HP, and I just wondered if that made sense, because I thought that'd be a little bit better radio, but it's not very expensive.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got the 82 HP, I think it is, and they're a little bit higher power radio and maybe a little bit more expensive. Sometimes having something completely different is good. What's good about those radios is that they use all the same accessories that the regular yellow radio uses, and so you don't have to like buy another speaker mic and all that kind of stuff. So if you can, it's okay to have a different radio, but having the same accessories is those accessories sometimes cost more than a radio does. So it's good to take advantage of those. And,
well, I really didn't know what I was doing when I bought it. I looked at Amazon. It was made by the same company, and it was black, and I didn't want a yellow one, so that's what I did.
Karen, what's the model number of the one that you guys are selling?
Oh gosh, it's F. Let me look quick, really fast. Hang on.
It's BF-F8 HP.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to get another couple of those too, because I really like this one too.
It's heavier. Mine's a little bit bigger. This is Benedict's, but I used this when I was doing net control up at the water tower, thinking you couldn't reach up there from this house, and you can now because this is a more powerful radio. And so I can, when I was up there, I just checked everybody if I could hear everybody after I did the net, and I could hear all the channels and everyone. And I thought, whoa, a much better radio. It's a little heavier, and it's $64.85. We charge $70, but it's worth it. It really is a good little radio.
I don't know. That one looks a little bit wider than the one I have. So maybe you do have one that's a little bit different. If you just slide the battery, if you slide the battery off, you can see on the back. It's listed.
It's an FAHP.
Yeah. Okay. It is the same one. Okay.
It's the same one.
Yeah.
But it's a good radio. I really enjoy it. And mine's an actual Nagoya.
Oh,
And
you checked to
oh
make
yeah, I
sure?
did. I did.
Yeah.
But I bought it from Bowtech or Bytech because or BTech or whatever it's Bowtech. It's a much better place to buy things.
Yeah, so but Baofeng and BTech are the same company, just in
Exactly.
case you run it seems to make no sense which radio goes with which company. But they're all the same thing.
I thought BTech was just a US company, takes them, goes through them, make sure that they all work before they sell them, and then they make sure that the equipment that they're selling is up to standard, is that my understanding. The other one is just directly out of China.
Yeah, although Baofeng does also sell in the US too, so it's
Oh yeah, but
it's
they
weird.
I think they go through the radios and sort of do an after manufacturer's product what do you want to do, product control or
Quality control.
quality control on it,
Yeah,
just to make sure that it works.
well, that's good.
I also have to say that I love that Neoconi repeater. It's a better, you can hear just as if you're talking right next door. It's a great repeater, great out here. You can hear everything. Sometimes it's a little squishy and noisy and scratchy on 005, but I really like that Neoconi repeater.
Yeah,
Bill,
it's
have you tried hitting it from down there? The new repeater?
I can hear it clearly, but the one time I tried to transmit, I got the feedback that I was scratchy, but somebody was able to relay the message, so somebody heard me.
Oh, good.
yeah. I relayed you, Bill, because only because I recognized a little bit of your voice when I
Mm.
when I heard it, so it was plenty scratchy. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, as always.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
to
you,
good
John.
to
Thank you.
actually see you all. And
One of these days we'll do something in person.
yeah,
That would
maybe
be-
we'll see some of you for the food bank thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing before we go, John, we were talking about group chunking. I think I was talking to somebody, and they said maybe it was Bob, said the only way that you can get the transmitter there to really wake up, if you call in, sometimes you'll get cut off, is if you could chunk, and then it gives you the repeater name, and then after that it works just fine. But it sort of lays there and sleeps until somebody just pokes it a little bit. So
yeah, that's
And
what
then it
if
interrupts
it's
you.
if it's been sleeping, for a while, and you key it, it does the voice ID,
yeah,
and the voice ID covers you up. And so you have to, it's good to kerchunk it and let it do its voice ID thing, and then you can
count of 3, yeah.
So that means when you're net control on that repeater, you should do that a couple minutes before you start the net.
right.
Yeah,
Correct.
at least listen for the ID and then start your net, because otherwise you won't get hurt.
Yeah. You can talk over the Morris, the CW ID, but you can't talk over the voice one. All right.
Yep.
And I
Right.
think
Good to
we're
see
gonna
everybody.
I think we're gonna use the Neoconi repeater for the food drive.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
I think might as well give it a workout.
Yeah. Well, I have
Great.
a couple of radios I have to take, not handhelds, but mobiles I have to take to Bruce too, to have him do, because the one I just checked today at City Hall and Wheeler, and that one doesn't have Neoconi on it. And I'd like to do that. And then there's another one I think I have for the city that I haven't gotten done yet, that I want to get updated. So
All right.
yeah, but it's nice to use that one.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
See you, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Bye.